a cash budget. The troublesome thing is that because entrepreneurs think finance is some heavy mumbo jumbo, it's about accounting statements, profit and loss, balance sheet, debit, credit, and all of that, they sort of balk at the idea of engaging in any kind of financial thinking. I don't even call it financial planning, it's financial thinking. Now, tell me honestly, as people who've been to college, can you not prepare the statement for any activity that you want to undertake? Yes. It doesn't require anything more than this. Believe me, this is all that it takes for a startup. If you've done this, you've done a lot. Most of the assumptions in this reflect your understanding of the business. It is not accounting fundamentals. It's not debit credit. It's not trial balance. Nothing of that sort. It's basically household expenses calculation. So that's basically the cash budget. Okay. So how do I use the cash budget? Right? I go back to this model that I started with, right? So I've done unit cost and basis, I've done a sales plan, I've done a cash budget. Now I want to identify the investment and funding plan, right? So that's what we will do next. So investment and funding plan. So this is the 3-year, the same cash budget. I have summarized it year on year. So before I sort of talk about this, so the reason I encourage entrepreneurs, the ones that I work with, to do a monthly cash budget is that most businesses have two things that most businesses suffer from. One is most businesses suffer from some sort of seasonality. Although we would like to say that some businesses are non-seasonal and all of that. I mean, I'm, for instance, involved with a company that manages logistics, right? I'm on the board of advisors of that company. You'll be surprised at the amount of seasonality in the logistics business. They fundamentally move homes and they help move commercial establishments. There's a huge amount of seasonality in that business. I never imagined when I first saw the slide decks that there would be so much seasonality in that business. So point number one, I want to so the reason I ask you to do a monthly cash budget or encourage you to do a monthly cash budget, because seasonality is inherent in most businesses in India. The second is that in our country, we suffer from a peculiar problem for most businesses. People like to avail of the service and pay later, right? So one of the companies that's been started by a former student of ours who is now incubating an NSR cell. So they do so. The career sciences thing was partly inspired by them, right? I won't mention the name here, but they sort of provide mentoring service to students who want to get into an MBA school, and those who have got into an MBA school, they mentor them in terms of taking up careers, right, and facing job interviews and so on, right? So that's the service they provide. They spend all the money doing this, but collect it later, right? So the lag between collection and delivering service, which involves spending money, that's fairly significant in our country. And the consequence of that can be trapped only through a monthly cash budget. I mean, imagine you had a statement like this. At the end of the year, everything looks nice, right? But when you do month on month, you realize that, month on month, you're actually burning cash. Look at the cash inflow minus cash outflow for this company. It's burning cash, right? And in one particular month, in the month of May, because of the seasonality effect, if you look at this number here, it's burning a huge amount of cash, right? So this is a funding requirement that is not that self-evident. If you look at the year's number as a whole, the year's number as a whole shows that it's short by only 4.5 lakhs. But if you actually think about this company's funding requirement, it's not 4.57 lakhs, but it is actually the amount of money that it needs in the peak month is actually 11 lakhs, 11.66 lakhs. So I know this is numbers and all of that, but I mean, leave the specifics aside. The point I'm trying to get across to you is that only when you do a monthly cash budget, you will know the peak amount of funding that you require. And you need to be prepared for the peak amount of funding. If you don't do that, you violate that fundamental lesson that we started this session with. Never run out of cash, right? If you are not prepared with 12 lakhs of cash, you would have had 12 or even 13 lakhs of cash. You would have gone through the month of June not being able to pay your bills, right? So if you look at the year as a whole, it doesn't give you that picture. So that's the reason I encourage people to do a monthly cash flow. Okay. So having said all of that,